All right, cool. Let's talk about Big House. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to go to Big House 8. I'm just trying to commit to one trip a month, and since TwitchCon's coming at the end of the month, I really thought that going to two trips was a little bit excessive. Married now, so I kind of want to keep to commitments and avoid kind of excessive traveling. So that's part of the reason why I'm not going. And also I have to kind of pay for trips out of my own pocket. I'm not sponsored by C9 anymore for the sole purpose of Smash, so it's going to be really hard to keep paying for stuff. So Big House 8, let's start with Cruise, which starts tomorrow, I believe. Anyway, so we got NorCal versus Tri-State. I kind of want to look at the Cruise here. Tri-State has Swedish, La Luna, Rishi, IBDW, Toussaint, and DJ as a substitute. NorCal has SFAT, PPU, Shroom, Diskid, Sparky, Rocky. This is going to be pretty interesting. I think it's going to be, let's see. I think SFAT, PPU, Shroom, obviously big hitters. And then you have two Ice Climbers. I think, or you don't really have Nintendo here this year. Diskid Boogie's kind of fallen off. And probably they're going to use him for the Ice Climbers kind of aspects, in Cruise. If you get Diskid Boogie versus Swedish, that'd be really good, especially if Swedish plays Sheik. So if I were to say, I think the wild cards here are really La Luna and Rishi. If they can get a lot of stocks off of Diskid and SFAT, and things can look kind of good. I think IBDW is a sleeper, but I'm not really sure how he does in front of large crowds, so that's kind of its own question marks. But I think on paper, I think NorCal is a bit stronger. They have nicer counter picks, and so I think NorCal is going to win that. SoCal versus South Florida. South Florida has Blea, Jello, Flipsy, Prof, Vu, Hungry Pigeon, and the Shiawea. I mean, I guess we can run the memes and say that Flipsy is going to beat Mango, but even if that happens, you still have Lucky, US Balls, SUJ, and Army, so I think that's going to be pretty one-sided. And then that leads to the final bracket of SoCal versus NorCal. I'm going to actually increase the size here so that people can see. I'm going to say that NorCal's bottom half looks a lot weaker. Shroom's not really been practicing the game. And if you have Diskid Boogie and Spark or Rocky, I just don't think that's a strong enough crew. Shroom has traditionally not been really good in crew battles, and I think that you can put S2J on PPU and Mango or Westballs on SFAT, and that kind of neutralizes the NorCal's kind of hope of any chance of carrying. So I really see SoCal pretty much winning it on that side of the bracket. If we were looking at the other side on EF, we have Midwest versus MDVA, which is going to be pretty interesting. MDVA has a pretty solid crew, but I unfortunately think that a lot of people aren't able to make it. Zane, Lodge, Chudad, Chillin, Wenbo, or Big Wens. So, not at full strength. If they had Junebug and a few other players, or if they had access to Rishi, I think they're actually a pretty strong crew. But Midwest has Duck, KGH, Abu, Ginger, Absent Page, and Michael. So I think Midwest, they don't really have a star per se, but they have a lot. Their top to bottom is decent. Definitely their bottom half is probably stronger than MDVA's bottom half. So it's going to really come down to, does Zane get a really good counter pick on KGH or Ginger or Absent Page, or are they able to neutralize Zane? If I were to go with a gut pick, I think MDVA wins it, but I think it's really close. I wouldn't be surprised with the hometown advantage and the rooting that Midwest ends up taking that. Yeah, I'm not going to Big House, unfortunately. I'm really sad. Central Florida versus Canada. Canada has Nunn, Ryan Ford, Moki, Vanitas, Jamrun, and Liquid. Unfortunately, their bottom half is a little bit weak, and when you look at Florida or Central Florida rather, with HBox, Plub, Wizzy, that's a really strong core, and then you toss in Gatsu, who's been doing really well lately, and Drunk Sloth. I think Florida easily wins this, and I think Florida easily wins the next round. So I think it's going to be Florida versus SoCal in the finals. Um, I think it's going to be really close. I mean, 100 Plex Plup Wizzy is a pretty good core, and this is kind of a situation where you don't really want to play Army if you're SoCal. So I think if SoCal plays this, I think I'd rather go with Mango, Lucky, Westfalls, S2J, and Fiction. Because it's really hard to slot Army. Army doesn't really win the. I don't think he won the Ditto last time against Drunk Sloth and Ices. I don't see him doing Super Bowl against HBox. I'd rather send in like Mango or something. If Plup goes Sheik, then maybe you have a slot there potentially. Maybe a Plup goes Sheik, you can save Army as a counter pick, but I think Fiction has a lot more value here. Wizrobe and Gatsu versus Army could either go really well or really bad. So I think Mango, Lucky, Westballs, SJ Fiction's the way to go. And I don't think it's without Mutaking, it's going to be kind of tough for Florida. Like this is going to be really close. Like we're going to see whether or not Plup shows up, but Wizrobe and Gatsu, like there's a lot of people in SoCal that have pretty good checks on like containing them. Like if you put West on Wizrobe, like you get an even trade, or maybe Westballs even wins that. And it's gonna be really hard to slot Gatsu. Gatsu's gonna have to overperform, and Drunk Slot's also gonna have to overperform here. Or there can be a really bad case where Gatsu only takes 1 to 2 stocks, and Drunk Slot maybe takes 2 stocks. And then if you have your bottom people in a crew battle like this, only take 2 stocks each, that's not really good. And I think there's enough healthy checks. Like if you put Mango on Fox or Mango on Falco on Yoshi's against HBox, like that's going to keep HBox in reasonable check. Like maybe Mango loses, but he takes 3 of HBoxes. So overall, super close. I think if SoCal, does their SoCal crew thing, they're probably going to win. I think Florida has a really good chance too. And those are my thoughts on crews. Doubles is going to be pretty interesting. I'm just going to look at the end. Don't really have too much insight otherwise. Let's see. I think Plup Balls is going to be really interesting. That seems to be a tradition at Big House, and Plup West Balls did pretty well that one tournament. They played it, maybe it was like 2 years ago. Over Triforce and Triff could be a pretty good pairing, but I'm not sure if they're going. Top 8. SIPP versus Shroomed S2J, it might be Plup Westballs. I think double spacey teams give Shroomed and S2J a really hard time just because Sheik and Falcon's a really odd pairing. Maybe Shroomed goes Marth. So if it's Shroomed, if it's Plup Westballs, because Westballs is Falco and SFAT don't really do well against Falco teams, I can actually see Plup Balls actually like beating SFAT and PPU. I wouldn't say they're the favorite, but SFAT and PPU probably make the winners finals, and they probably play against Android and Armada. Who knows? I'm gonna have to look at this side of the bracket. I think this is pretty straightforward for Android and Armada. They don't really seem to have too many tough matchups. Mango Lucky versus Chuda Hungrybox is going to be very interesting. It just really comes down to how much can they abuse Chu, or if they even show up to doubles. Historically speaking, Mango doesn't play in these, so I imagine that he's probably not going to play in this tournament either. So SF and PPU, Android Armada, and Chuda Hungrybox are probably my 3 teams I can say like would have a good chance at winning. SF and PPU have a 3 or 7 tournament win streak, I believe. Like they haven't lost a tournament in like 6 months, so like they come in riding really hot. But because Armada doesn't really have singles to focus on, I think that Android and Armada are going to be really warmed up and really well prepped. And I actually think that honestly Android and Armada are the slight favorite here over SFAT and PPU, given kind of the extraneous like kind of conditions that each player and each team has. I think Android and Armada are really going to want to win this. And don't get me wrong, I think SFAT and PPU also want to win every doubles tournament, but I think Armada is just going to have a lot more time and available resources just to focus on that. So by and large, I think Android and Armada are the favorite here. All right, looking at melee singles, not really gonna look at pools. It's just gonna take really too long to look. There's probably some interesting pools, interesting upsets. I'm gonna assume that most players make it out to this point into top 64. Do we see Fiction losing to Drunk Sloth? I don't really see it. Well, so let's see. The narratives into Big House. Well, unfortunately, Armada retired and Muti King's writing a book, but most people are coming. It's a pretty stacked event. Like even if you look at like the brackets before top 64, there's a lot of people that are not going to make it to the top 64 bracket, showing just like how like stacked this event is. I remember somebody tweeted, I forget who, that this is like the second or third most stacked tournament of the year. So that should tell you by and large that this is really stacked. I know that's just kind of redundant. So let's see here. I'm gonna look at the seating too. Okay, let's take a look. I'm gonna zoom out a bit. Sorry guys, it's gonna be a little bit small on your end. I think, let's see. Fiction versus Wizrobe. I love matchups that don't really happen that often. And I would love to see how Fiction faces against Wizrobe. I unfortunately do think that Wizrobe's defensive game is too strong, and I feel Fiction's probably going to get gimmicked by a few things. So I don't really see an upset here, and I see Wizrobe against PPU. You know, PPU has done better against Falcon. I think Wizrobe's game is a little bit too clean and consistent, especially in the punish game, for me to really see Wizrobe losing here. So I think Wizrobe's route to quarterfinals is pretty safe. Now, we look at this quartile here with Hugs, None, Plup, and IBDW. Maybe IBDW has like a slight chance. I don't really see it. Maybe IBDW takes a game and then Plup just kind of turns it on. Don't really see Plup losing to None or Hugs either. Like, I think this is a pretty good bracket for him. So he probably makes it to winner's quarters pretty straightforward. Here, Colwell, Swedish, Ryan Ford, and S2J. I think if you're a Swedish Delight fan, like, you have to be a little bit nervous here because, like, Swedish against, like, top 30 level Foxes, although we would say Swedish is probably a top 15 player. I would be nervous. Like, I wouldn't say like Swedish would lose, but I wouldn't be terribly surprised that if Colwell ended up beating Swedish. S2J Swedish would be an interesting matchup. S2J probably being the higher seed. I think Swedish is probably the slight favorite just in the Sheik Falcon matchup. I think Swedish is really solid. So, like, hopefully S2J gets a run back on Hungrybox, but I don't really see that happening. And then we have Hungrybox Shroomed Army over Triforce. Fortunately for Army, like, I think Army can do it, but I think Shroomed is also really good with his Marth against Ice Climbers, but Shroomed has been out of practice, so, oh my gosh, that's like a super big coin flip for me. I don't really know who to win that. Like, I think Shroomed has to be the slight favorite with his Marth. Like, he's been really good at the matchup, and, like, he knows, like, how to play it really well, and he has a pretty good game plan that's, like, really patient and really frustrating to deal with. But maybe Army brings in new technology and just overwhelms Shroomed. It's going to be tough. Going down here, we have La Luna, Lod, Mike Hayes, and Mango. Mike Hayes is probably going to lose to Mango. Maybe Mike Hayes doesn't even make it that far with how much he's been slumping lately. Luna versus Lod, like, on paper, Marth wins, but I don't think La Luna is particularly great against Peach. And we get Lod versus Mango, which I actually really want to see. Maybe Lod's, like, defensive game really just frustrates Mango into, like, tilting. I can kind of see a weird universe where, like, Lod somehow ends up winning against Mango, which is how, like, patient and frustrating that Lod is to play against. Like, maybe Lod just plays so campy that, like, Mango just keeps going in, gets gimped, and then it happens, like, multiple times in a row. Zane, Gatsu, Lucky, KGH. Foxitos are always, like, all over the place. Zane versus Gatsu, I know that's Falcon versus Marth, and we really just saw SCJ just run train on Zayn. I do not think Gatsu's is like overly. I mean, I wouldn't say SCJ is like a Marth Slayer, but I don't think Gatsu's good enough. Like, I think Zayn's just gonna out good player him here. Um, Trying to just like think through like everything here. Like Zayn versus Gatsu, like Zayn, like even though like we say he has Falcon issues, he lost to Smuckers, he got pretty bad by SCJ. Like he still like beat None recently, and he's like gone close with Wizzy multiple times. So like, although I think it's one of his weaker matchups, I don't think like Falcon bracket means an auto loss. So we have Zayn versus Fox. I mean, even if Lucky were to run really well, and even though Lucky did beat Zayn at Genesis, I think Zayn just chews up Foxes that he's going to make it in that part of the bracket. Axe, Absent Page, Triff, and SFAT. Really tough to say what Axe is up to lately because we just haven't seen much of him. I do see Absent Page potentially upsetting Axe here, which is the way he plays Fox and how clean it is. Maybe. But then again, like you kind of have that weird effect where if you don't see Pikachu play in a while, you don't really have a game plan or you don't really think about Pikachu. So like, maybe Axe just runs with it through like just the sheer novelty. Now we have an interesting thing here coming out of Phase 2 L113 with Triff versus SFAT. I think Triff can actually make a big run here. I think he could beat SFAT, and I think he could beat the winner of Axe and Absent Page, or he could just lose to SFAT. So like, if you want a surprise like pick, or you want to go like, hey, like I think this person can break out, like I think that person's Triff based on this bracket. And in the last quartile, we have Westfall's Duck, Chudat, and Leffen. Leffen looked really good at EVO. Don't know how Leffen feels day to day. This Chudat Leffen rematch of Shine that 1 year with UCF is going to come back here. Maybe Chudat just like somehow ends up winning somehow, and then Leffen gets tilted, or Leffen just kind of runs through here. Westfall's Duck is pretty interesting. They seem to go back and forth. I think Westfall's won like at an EVO or something recently. And then we get Westfalls versus Leffen. I think Leffen, strangely enough, is a heavy favorite against Westfalls. But like, let's say Duck wins, then we have Duck Leffen, which I think would be incredibly interesting to have the reigning Evo champ potentially lose here to Duck. We all know about the Samus matchup, and I just think there's a potential for upset here. But if he does make it out here, like we get Leffen Axe. So going here, like it's really hard to preview losers bracket. Just to be perfectly honest, like there's just so many permutations that happen. But let's say we get to the loser gets 9th place run. Just kind of looking around this area. I think Swedish Delight and Zayn, if they ended up playing out, would be super interesting. I think Zayn got a lot better against Sheik. Like I think he plays Junebug pretty decent amount, way better than he was 2 years ago. And I know that Zayn beat Plup 2 years ago at a big house, but I didn't really, even with that, I don't think Zayn was particularly good at the matchup. Like, but I think he's grown significantly here, and this might be in the. And right below we have Axe versus PPU. Poor PPU. That was like the bane of like 2015, 2016, where PPU would always run into Axe for like 9th place and always lose. I don't see that changing here. Although PPU has been studying a lot of matchups, I don't think Pikachu's been on his radar because Axe hasn't shown up to many things. So I kind of see just Axe running away with this 3-0, 3-1. Westfalls versus SFAT. That'd be interesting, you know, even if he makes it that far. Like, I think Westfalls is a slight favorite over SFAT, so if it's Westfalls versus Wizrobe, then I think Westfalls has a slight edge, but overall just so coin flippy. Lucky would have to play Hugs, that's kind of funny, for 17th if brackets play out. SCJ versus Lucky, SoCal Special, really tough to see. I watched a little bit of Fun Day, Lucky looked really good, so who knows. If you look at winners quarters, Wizrobe versus Plup. I'm just going to kind of run through this. Plup versus Plup's probably going to win 3-1, maybe like 3-0 or 3-2. SCJ versus Hungrybox, or maybe Swedish. I think Hungrybox kind of gets in, so we get a Hungrybox versus Plup winner semis. Mango Zane. Zane's taken the last 3 sets. Last time, even when Mango was playing really well, Mango still lost in 5 games, and Granted, like if Mango just played a little bit more patient, like I could see Mango like winning that. But like just with how stubborn Mango is at playing right now, and he doesn't really have any kind of discipline, like I feel like if he were playing like a 9 out of 10, like that might not be enough, just because he's not going to play patient enough, and he's just going to get gimped way too many times, just with how proficient Zane is. What I would really love to see here, if I were coaching Mango, I'd really love to see a Falcon flex pick, and that Falcon would be used specifically on FD. And I think that if he played, but the issue with Mango on FD is that he has a really giant ego, and he has a large sense of pride with his Falco, and he always believes that his Falco can beat anybody on FD. So I feel like, even if in his head he's like, Falcon would win 65% of the time and Falco would win 30% of the time or 10% of the time, Mango will just still pick Falco. And so it's kind of frustrating, but I think if Mango went Falcon, like in a potentially swung a game on FD, or if Zane can't pick that, then that would really swing the matchup. But unfortunately, I do not see that happening. And I don't see anyone really telling Mango to like try to win the event. Maybe he's motivated, maybe because of the 2, 4, 6, 8 every even big house. Maybe Mango's motivated to win this, and maybe he will actually play like not like necessarily seriously, but like play in a way that will help him maximize the chances of him winning. And then we have Axe versus Leffen. Leffen tends to demolish Axe. There are a few cases where Axe does win, but potential upset. But I think Leffen's Fox is just like way too clean that like I see Leffen winning this 3-1. And if we play this out, I think this is gonna be Leffen Zane, and I think Zane probably beats Leffen. If I were to be honest, I saw some friendlies, and granted, LOL memes, like, it's just friendlies. Like, I just think Zane's way too good against Leffen, or, like, Zane's really way too good against, like, Spaceys, and I just think that Leffen's just okay against Marth. That, unless, like, between Saturday night and Sunday top 8, like, if Leffen just grinds, like, for, like, 10 hours straight against Marth and has, like, a really steady game plan, like, even then, I think Zane's a slight favorite. So overall, I think it's going to be pretty interesting. Like, if we get a winners finals, like, rematch of Zane versus, like, Plup or Hungrybox, these are both players that Zane can beat. And if we even look at the bracket here, like, this is a pretty good bracket. And granted, we can say that 20 GX or Gatsu could beat Zane. Like, I think Zane, like, if he can get past that potential upset point, like, Zane has Lucky into Mango into Leffen. That's 3 Spaceys in a row into probably Hungrybox, a player he's defeated. And maybe Crunch, brings in new intel and, like, brings in different things. But this looks like a really good bracket for Zane. Like, Zane could easily make it to winners finals, finish top 2, top 3, or even win this and, like, kind of win the have a winning streak going between Shine and this. Now, I don't think he wins this every time. Like, I think the percentages play out. Like, Hungrybox has a pretty good shot. Plop has a big shot. Leffen could run hot. Mango could beat Zane. Like, but overall, I do think this is a pretty favorable bracket for him, where he does whiff on, even Army has beaten him recently. But, like, he does not have to play a Wizrobe. He does not have to play an S2J. These people in the 9 through 16 seeds, like, he's whiffed on completely. So, and granted, like, you need a little bit of bracket luck to go your way to win these events. But I'm just going to say in this particular bracket, this is a very favorable bracket for Zane. So, overall, I think we have a lot of interesting things at play. Like, Mango could beat Zane. He could beat Leffen. He could go on a run. Leffen could play really well and mirror his Evo performance. Wizrobe could potentially go on a run. I think it's stops by Plup. Plup can overtake Hungrybox. Maybe Plup goes on a good run here. But the interesting thing here, and I am primarily going to focus on top 64. Top 64, honestly, is my favorite part of bracket. Whenever I go to a Smash Major, I am more interested in the results of top 64 than top 8. Because you just see the upcoming hungry players are rising up the ranks, pull upsets. Every match a lot of the not every match, but a lot of the matches are pretty intense. You can see the potential for upset. You see a lot more variety, and there's just so much going on at all times. There's no dead time. Like it's kind of like having like the red zone like NFL package where like you watch this like one exciting set, and as that ends you immediately hop on and run to the other part of the venue where something else is happening. So it's like just a really exciting part of the bracket, and I'm really looking forward to watching it. Fortunately, I'm not going to be physically there at the tournament, but I would love, hopefully, that people take initiative and have as many recording setups, because I would love to see every one of these sets recorded. I think it's going to be really hype. So those are my thoughts on Big House. If we're going to kind of recap here, if you're going to skip, I think SoCal is the favorite in Cruise. I would pick them to win. And SoCal has a lot of pride in it. I pick Central Florida to get second, but I wouldn't be surprised if they won. In doubles, I pick Android and Armada over SFAT and PPU in grand finals. And for Big House 8, for my predictions, I think Hungrybox will defeat Zane to win the tournament. So those are my 3 predictions, and those are my thoughts on Big House.